What you're hearing is Hardy Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardy knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardy products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardy. Hardy Fiber Cement Siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy Siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. This is me, Jonathan Alexander, and I'm here to host our show, Life, Laughter, Happiness. Today, I have my co-host, Barbara, with me. Are you there, Barbara?
Yes, I am. Hi, Johnny. How are you?
Good. And the subject for today's show is coaches. Now, have you ever consulted a coach?
Coaches? Consulted? Well, I've had numerous coaches in my life. Coaches have been the most important thing in my life, really. Growing, learning, competing. I've been in all kinds of sports with teams. And I just wanted to make a point of that because the coaches in our life have done so much for us. But one thing we don't think about is consulting a coach for our life. Not a lot of people do. So why not? If you could be the best practice on, at softball or playing the drums or whatever you're doing with a coach and practice, then why can't you make your life better by applying the same kind of thing?
That's right. Now, today, our guest today is a coach, and his name is David Essel. Did I pronounce your name right, David?
Actually, Jonathan, you're close. It's Essel.
David Essel.
Oh, wow.
Well, he's a famous coach. He's an executive coach, counselor. Hi, David. Welcome to the show.
Barbara, it's great to be with you and Jonathan. And anything I can do to help you guys, the audience, that's what I'm here for. So I'm super excited to be on board.
Okay, great. Well, you heard my little rundown about coaches, and they are very important. And right now I am in a course. I feel like I do have there is a leader, a great leader, but we only meet on a Zoom every other week, and we have an accountability team where we write into just a few people in the course that we did our homework, which my homework is mirror work, writing in my journal, and meditation only for a minute to the newcomers, because meditation is sometimes hard for people. And then I write in and say, okay, homework done. And now we're on the course of Feng Shui. So I want to see the differences in how you coach, life coach people, groups, what have you. I've listened to your radio show, which is absolutely excellent and a great source for learning and becoming a better person. So why don't you take the floor and tell us what is different about you, David?
Yeah, well, Barbara, it's a great question. And Jonathan, I happen to be very blessed that I'm married the world of counseling. I'm a counseling and a life coach. And I started out in the world of sports psychology, Barbara. You were talking about athletes, and I played basketball at Syracuse University. So it was a natural for me to come out of school and to go right into sports psychology. That was 1979. And for the first 11 years of my career, I can't believe I've been doing this for 45 years. It's gone by in a flash. But for the first 11 years, it was all about helping athletes with their mindset, bodybuilders, fitness professionals with their mindset. And then in 1990, it all changed. A couple huge things happened in my life. And I started going down the road of counseling, and the difference isn't that great. But let me tell you, Barbara, what you just said really lights me up. The fact that coaches give homework is one of the greatest differentiations between a therapist, counselor, and a coach. Coaches are supposed to be accountability partners. Coaches are supposed to give assignments. And I cannot tell you how many couples will come to me or people struggling with addiction who've worked with other therapists, other counselors like myself, and I'll be saying to them, okay, so for next week, I want you to read chapter 1 in this book. I want you to watch these 5 videos and take notes, and I want you to journal every night. It's so funny what you're saying, Barbara. It's identical to what I do. And we're going to start either with a deep breathing exercise to calm the mind or meditation. Now, and I have to tell you something interesting. A very good friend of mine is a psychiatrist, and we were talking a couple weeks ago, and she said, you know, you're one of the few counselors left in this country that actually gives assignments. So the fact that, you know, there are many counselors and therapists that don't give assignments, I believe really led to the rise of life coaches, because life coaches are supposed to be that accountability person. You say, oh, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to get clean and sober? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to save your relationship? Well, here are some exercises to begin with. So yes. I'm a huge fan of counseling and coaching. And Barbara, it sounds like you're working with a good group.
Well, thank you. And that is so interesting that you say that is very important, because I think we as human beings, we are longing, we're craving that leader in our lives to tell us what to do. For example, I take a class once a week learning how to play the drums, and I have my own set at home, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And sometimes right before I leave, I say to him, tell me to practice. No, you have to tell me right now. Please just say it. Tell me to practice, because I need it. If he tells me to do something, I will do it. And that is my instructor, my counselor. That is what we are craving. And for somebody to not give you your homework, I think that is maybe not so. You may not get to where you're going as quickly.
I agree 1,000%. And, you know, it is, I said this earlier, it's shocking when people come in and they're hiring me as a counselor, and before they leave, I say, you know, here's your homework, and they look at me like, what do you mean? We've worked with therapists and counselors in the past, and we've never gotten anywhere. Why homework? And I said, that's the reason you haven't gotten anywhere. You know? And Barbara, you know, the other thing that we do with especially our executive coaches, they have to text me daily. I put them on a schedule where 5 days a week they have to send a text between 9 and 5 with a quick update. Did they accomplish the goal for the day or not? That's all it is. It's a yes or no question. And then when I see them the next week, we see people every week, every 7 days. When I see people the next week, I'll go, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, no text. What's going on? You know, and then they'll go, oh, my gosh, you know, the dog ate the homework, you know, all kinds of excuses. And I'll say, listen, you know, you're paying a lot of money. I want you to be successful, but nothing's moving. That needle is not moving if you don't do something towards your goal every day of the week. Now, that might seem overimposing for some people, but when I say doing something towards a goal every day, it might be what you said earlier, 3 minutes of meditation every morning. It might be journaling every evening. It might, you know, it might be walking at noon for an hour. But we have to, whatever the goal is, a really good coach, counselor, therapist should be outlining the steps needed to do for next week. So then when the client comes in for that next session, we go, okay, let's go through your homework right now. This is the way people grow. And so when we're talking coaching, we're talking accountability partners. And for any counselors, therapists listening, if you're not giving your clients assignments, today would be a good day to start doing so.
You know, actually, I was just going to say something like Tony Robbins, when one of the things I was thinking about to get ready for today, he made a comment. This is back when Michael Jordan was playing. He goes, Michael Jordan as a coach, he's one of the best.
Hardy fiber cement siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.
Oh, you know what, Jonathan, let me take it a step further. When Michael Jordan was asked, when he retired and went to baseball, when he was asked, you know, how did he become the most elite player to ever put their feet on a basketball court? Now, this was probably 10 years, 15 years ago. Now people are arguing, you know, who's the GOAT, who's the greatest of all time. Michael Jordan looked at a reporter, and I remember standing there, and he said, If I didn't have a nutrition coach, a physical training coach, a mental coach, there's no way I could pull this off for as long as I have by myself. So even the elite in this world understand the need of accountability and coaches. And when we talk about LeBron James, he spends $1.5 million per year on self-care. Yoga instructors, Pilates instructors, personal trainers, mental coaches, diet coaches. I mean, you know, these people who are serious, that are rising to the top, the cream that's rising to the top, they all have at least one or more coaches in order to get them through the humps and hurdles that every human being faces, but they're wise enough. Now, I'm not saying you have to spend $1.5 million on your self-care. If you have the money, oh, my God, do it. Yeah. You can do it for a lot less, but you've got to line up with someone who is in that same frame of mind, the same energy. And, you know, what we do with our counseling and coaching work is that if someone wants to work with me, the very first thing we do is we say, we're going to do a free call, 20-minute session on the phone, no charge to you whatsoever. I want to make sure I understand what your needs are. I'll tell you how I can help you. And more importantly than anything I just said, I want you to feel a connection with me. Because if you feel a connection with me, you will work hard. If for some reason you don't feel that connection, totally fine. There's thousands of other coaches, counselors, and therapists out there. But we give away that free session, Barbara and Jonathan, so that people know what they're getting into. They're not blind when they come into their first session. As a matter of fact, after that 20-minute session, when they sign up, I give them homework right away. so we know how serious.
You know, I was going to say something else. It's one thing to give someone advice. It's another thing to give someone advice who has no intention of listening to you. That it's sort of what's the point. I mean, if somebody, if you say, like, say you have person A and person B, let's say that you're person A, but they are more likely to listen to advice from a person B, I would rather them talk to person B. You see my point?
Well, that's what
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that energy connection, Jonathan, that I was talking about, right? Where you want to make sure you're on the same, you know, page with someone, and you want to. This is what I say to people. If you have that connection, you're going to trust that counselor, coach, therapist sooner. You're going to do more work and dig deeper, and you're going to get to the end result quicker. If you don't have that connection, you might be making excuses and sending them a text the day before. Oh, I forgot, you know, my aunt's 15th cat is having a birthday tomorrow and I can't make the session. You know, you have to make sure you're connected. There's been a couple times where I've had clients come in. Now, I've been doing this 45 years. And when I say a couple times, I really mean like 2 or 3 times in 45 years, where someone started talking and I knew right away it was not a match. And
you didn't like them.
I'm sorry?
You may not like them.
No, exactly. And, you know, when I said, and I can remember one of the sessions, I said to the individual, he goes, well, you know, how do you work? And I was explaining the process. He said, well, if I started a week from today, is there something you'd have me do between now and then? I said, oh, my gosh, yes. I have a book that I would recommend. I'd want you to read chapter 1, answer the questions, and I'd want you to do this. He said, yeah, that doesn't work for me. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't have time for homework and writing. I said, then you'll find someone who will agree with you, but this isn't the place for you. And,
well,
you know,
another,
kind.
I understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another thing I was going to say was this sort of applies not necessarily to coaches but therapists. Is the movie Good Will Hunting? What had happened was they told the kid that he needed to go see a therapist, but the problem was it was not just a matter of seeing therapy; it was seeing the right one. You know, it wasn't until they went to the sweet, smart Robin Williams character that knew how to handle this kid, you know.
Oh, right. That reminds me, I have a question about that, because there's a difference between having a counselor, or now you can do it through Zoom, or a life coach. Because I've had counselors where I've had specific issues in life that I couldn't get over, where I go sit on the couch, and I end up, my voice would get so scratchy for basically talking incessantly for an hour to this woman, but it did help. But your life coaching is different than that, correct? because you have to work and
Barbara, you know what we do is the part of therapy and counseling that we feel is crucial, that is obviously still a part of my coaching program, is that we need to find the origin of the challenge, of the dysfunction. If it's alcohol, if it's challenges ongoing in relationships, if it's challenges with money, if it's weight, whatever it is. We, in therapy and in counseling, one of the really great things that therapists and counselors bring to the table is finding the origin. When did this start? Who did this, who influenced you? Did you have a role model? Was mom or dad an alcoholic and you're following in their footsteps? Did you have an uncle that, and I'm being very serious because this happened a couple of weeks ago, did you have an uncle that lived with you and was completely disrespectful for his wife and everyone thought it was funny? Well, you come out of those environments, and I have someone who's struggling in relationships with women. I'll go right back to 0 to 18. This is our famous words in therapy. 0 to 18 is where 90% of adult issues begin. So when we can logically go back and say, oh, my gosh, no wonder why you can't handle money, or no wonder why you lean on alcohol, or no wonder why you're in a bunch of crazy relationships, we want to add logic for our clients so they can go, oh, I've never known why I've continued to do this for 30 years. Well, it started at age 8. And as a matter of fact, on a personal note, I struggled with alcohol and cocaine for over 30 years, and I started at 12. And there isn't a drug I haven't tried, and I don't say that bragging by any means. I was running from pain, and that's what the world of addiction is based on. Anyone who has an addiction to food, alcohol, cocaine, they are running from something. So when we work with alcoholics, when we work with food addicts, drug addicts, spending addicts, social media addicts, video game addicts, oh, my God, porn is huge in regards to the world of addiction. We want to know why and how it started, and we can always find it. A gentleman started last week, and he said, David, what I'm struggling with today has nothing to do with my childhood. In 7 days, after I gave him a couple of writing exercises, he came in and he said, I am just like my father. I don't listen to anyone. Now, we're not parent bashing here. What we're saying is, oh, my God, we found the reason that you are disrespectful to authority. We found the reason you're disrespectful to women. Thank God we found the reason. Now, let's clean it up. And that's the combination of counseling and coaching.
That's how you can heal, because you find it. And isn't it fun? I'm sure it's fun for you to see when somebody realizes it and it clicks. Wow, that is the issue. That's where it came from. And then they can fix it. Why, if they know what it is, can they fix it more easily?
That's right. But, if I, like my addictions that started at 12 was for acceptance. I was and still am an extremely emotional, extremely sensitive man. On the flip side, I'm a very powerful athlete and all these other things that men are supposed to be. But growing up, my mom and dad had no idea how to handle such a sensitive kid. My brother and sister were very different, and I took everything so personally. And I could get upset in a heartbeat. I could say things that were inappropriate at any age to say. And, I remember in 1959, and the reason I can remember it, I'll tell you in a second. I was having a lot of struggles at home, even at 3 years of age. My parents brought me into the pediatrician, and back in 1959, Barbara and Jonathan, doctors smoked in the office. And I'm sitting in the office, and the doctor is chain smoking, and every time I went in, he said the same thing. He said, your son's just battling with allergies, and when allergies hit, that's where you get irritable. That wasn't the truth at all. In 1959, they had no way to diagnose clinical depression or generalized anxiety disorder in children. So it wasn't until 1990, and this is a heavy I'm going to mention right now. In 1990, I had a failed suicide attempt as a counselor. I had reached a level of just no relief since I was born, basically, of struggling with clinical depression and anxiety. After the failed suicide attempt, I'm working with the psychiatrist. I'm on all these crazy psychotropic drugs for a year just to get my head back into the game. And he said, I'm going to put you through a battery of tests. He said, I think you're going to be surprised what you find out. Now, here's Mr. Motivation. Jenny McCarthy labeled me a number of years ago the new leader of the positive thinking movement. Wayne Dyer has endorsed my work, Deepak Chopra, everyone in the world. And in 1990, I had already been in business for 11 years. I came back in, probably about 6 months in, we did all these tests, and he said, you have scored 100% positive for deep clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder, which, Mr. Essel, you have had from birth. No one diagnosed you accurately. The pain became so great, the only way you thought out was to take your life. Thank God it didn't work. And then Jonathan and Barbara, from that moment forward, my life has completely changed. Absolutely completely. I have dedicated my whole existence to the world of mental health, to a world of helping people reach higher levels of understanding and self-love, which can take time. But, we look at some of these things, and I was very fortunate in 1990 that somebody or some entity or an angel intervened, whatever the words are. I am so fortunate. Because out of that now, and I'm working with a wife right now whose husband committed suicide 3 weeks ago. Oh. I can sit in her shoes, and I know exactly what her former husband was going through. And when I can explain in my sessions to someone, there's so many misconceptions about suicide, and religion doesn't help. There's some religions that condemn suicide. The reality is, and I'm not supporting it by any means, please don't get this wrong, but if people get to that place, there is a feeling that there is no option. They get so afraid of mentioning to anyone that they're struggling this deeply. They feel there's no other option. Yeah. 6 months ago, I worked with a family whose 82-year-old dad committed suicide. And, the family were saying things like, he was so selfish, he left us alone, and that's an attitude of a lot of people. But it's not the truth. When we got to the bottom of it, he knew his time was limited, and he took his life because there was so little money left in the bank and in the insurance policy. He wanted his wife to have enough for the rest of her life. Now, when you think of it that way, people have a tendency to really change their opinion and maybe be a little softer when we're talking about such difficult subjects.
Oh, I would always be soft. I remember when Kurt Cobain, the story was that he committed suicide, and I just am hoping that he didn't, but I just have a lot of people, actually, several friends who have. Some I have all the information, some I have no information. And as an actress, you can actually put yourself in to that feeling of,
yes,
I have done that. Your mind is so very powerful. So if you can put yourself into it, of course you can put yourself out of it or look at it, compartmentalize it. I'm thinking always, and put it there, and then there it is, and I can move away from it, and I don't have to be affected from it. But that's my weird thing. I've always been born with being able to find solutions, and was brought up with my brother, who's just a year older in school, his manic depression. So it was up, down, up, down. I just didn't like it when it was down, and I had so many ways to make it back up. So, but when we, those people, become pleasers and doing for others and then forget about ourselves sometimes as we go through life.
That's right.
Okay, by the way,
go ahead.
I have a specific question. I even wrote it down. Do you have a specific plan for people who are going through maybe hormonal changes like menopause or PMS, or after losing a baby, like something which is female, that maybe they need a drug from the doctor?
Yeah.
What do you do? Do you have a list of where to send them if you think that's what they need?
It's a great question, and the answer is yes. And I teach a life coach certification program. We have since 1996. One of them is to be a certified mental health coach, and the other one is to be a certified addiction recovery coach. When I'm working with women, like you said, with PMS, when we're talking about perimenopause, it blows my mind. A lot of women still don't even know what that is. They're just not being educated, or they go into menopause, or they lose a child at birth. Yeah, we have had it all in 45 years. Barbara and Jonathan, I say this quite frankly and honestly. I'm sure there's something that I've missed in 45 years, but I've been presented with so many incredible challenges of other people facing. And I'll tell you, the smartest counselors, therapists, and coaches in the world, we know our limitations, or we should know our limitations. And I'll give you an example. 4 weeks ago, I had a client that was having a mental breakdown in my office. This is the first time in 45 years. I've had heroin addicts on the floor vomiting, sweating for 30 minutes of the hour. Then they can finally get up and sit in a chair and talk. I've had so many things. I've never had someone break down mentally in my office. He is an incredible entrepreneur. He's massive. He's an athlete. He's all of these different things. And he's in my office crying hysterically.
Okay. What do you mean by breakdown exactly? Could you give us some more details?
Yeah. Well, this is going to be very intense. Am I really here in this office with you?
Oh.
I feel I'm not. I don't feel present. I feel I'm somewhere else. When those type of thoughts, which is called dissociation, when you cannot connect with the present moment and you don't know the counselor sitting in front of you is real. He even said that. Are you real? When you have
no drugs.
I'm sorry?
Well, on
no.
specific drugs do you know what he's on?
No, nothing. As a matter of fact, before he had the breakdown, and this is one of the things that's going to sound surprising that led to the breakdown, he was extremely successful and a really high alcoholic. When you take a drug like alcohol away, everything you've been covering up is going to rush to the surface. Anxiety, depression, anger, rage, irritability, dissociation, PTSD, whatever you're covering up with food, with alcohol, with drugs, with anything that you're addicted to, when you take it away, Pandora's box is going to open. What did you say, Barbara?
Nicotine, that's a big one now, especially for the young people.
Yeah. You know what's so, nicotine is horrendous as it is. What's so bad about it today is the vape. We don't know. It'll say a certain milligrams. You don't know. We don't know what else is in that vape. That scares the heck out of me. So with this gentleman, I had said to him, I said, listen, I am at my limit of how I can help you. I got you sober. I got things straightened out in certain areas of your life. I helped you. But now, with this kind of mental crisis, we need a psychiatrist because I cannot prescribe drugs. And so I actually went with him. He was so nervous, scared to go to the psychiatrist by himself. This is not a guy that's 15 years of age. And I said, if I go, will you go? And he said, oh my God, thank you. Yes. So this is what we do in the world of therapy, counseling, and coaching. There are no limits for great coaches, great therapists, great counselors. You do whatever you have to do.
You cover everything. Full coverage of a person with their emotions, their addictions, their things they want to change, maybe their dreams. Do you ask them about their dreams? Do you do something like a feng shui, make sure they're flowing at home? Like, something like you send your team out to their apartment and you make sure it's welcoming to the other sex that they want to entertain, in their home. Do you do things like that?
Well, we don't go into someone's home and feng shui their home. I will. But you know what, Barbara? Listen, in 2000, I brought a feng shui expert into my house. because I wanted to see her reaction to the way I lived. And it's really interesting, with some people, there can be no clutter for perfect feng shui. There could just be one or two photos on the wall. It's not overly crowded. Now, when she walked into my house, because I've been in the public eye for so long, Barbara, like you, I have full-blown 4-by-4 foot posters of myself with books and videos and all this kind of stuff. And there was a room that was just, the walls were covered with all this memorabilia. And I thought she was going to walk in and say, okay, we got to clear half of this out. She walked in and says, how does this room feel to you? And that's what feng shui is.
Yeah, and you loved it. And it was about love and family, that part of your room. And I think it's great because I think the clutter means like in your way, but if it's on the wall as shown as artwork, and you love looking at it and it's inspirational, you're right. But it sounds like you didn't have like clutter all over the floor where people trip, or you got a pile waiting for this person or that person, and you've got clothes everywhere, and you just can't seem to get organized with your clothes because there's no room for them. So you've got bins going on, and they're heading to storage, but you aren't doing it yet, and you don't want to overload your car, and la 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 la. So you need a person hands-on sometimes.
That's right. Exactly.
Do that, though, or have you thought about doing that?
No, what we do is we ask people to take a picture of each room. And then I can look at the picture and I can ask them questions. What part of this room do you love? What part of the room do you stay away from? What part of the house do you stay away from? This is a big one. And they'll bring in pictures of a couple of rooms they stay away from. And more often than not, Barbara, it's crowded. I'm not going to say it's to the point of hoarding, but stuff is just all over. Right? And I go, no wonder why you don't go in there. Hey, let's start to organize this.
They probably can't even, I've been there. Okay, you can't walk in a straight line and everything, but it's like a work in progress because you've got to do other things in your day, and if you don't, it's a balance, but it never seems to get done. But I'm kind of in that right now, but it's every day. Like, if I don't do something towards that every day, it's going to get worse because you're going to add to the pile. So you must, even if it's a simple thing like that, do it every day. Pretty soon, boom, wow, it's put away. And because you work towards it. Little things work, but why can't we apply it to the big things? It works too. I've manifested many things, but people get to the where, but I manifested that when I was at my prime. I was like 42 and, had all of the, trainers and dance coaches I wanted and chefs and private jet and my own limo, which, I actually did have. But I was able to become a dance champion because I had that for 6 years of, where I could just train but what if I had that opportunity and I had no passion already burning inside of me that I was born with, that I had to be a dancer? Some people, a lot of people have come to me and said, you're so lucky that you had passion for something, and you have passion for many things. I have passion for nothing. And literally they're like the CEO of a company, big company, and they're telling you this? Wow. So do you have many people that it's hard to find, well, how can you make your life better? What do you want to do? What can you do to, what if they're financially strapped or they are so down because they have a mental issue? But you can relate to that definitely with your I don't even know how you made it till 1990 before you walking around just not knowing what was wrong with yourself. But
you know what happened,
things like
Barbara,
that. I think it's very interesting.
How I got that far to 1990 was I was using alcohol to numb the depression and anxiety. So when you have almost every person with an addiction has a mental health issue underneath the addiction. It could be low self-confidence, low self-esteem. It could be peer pressure. It could be trauma. It could be molestation from youth. There's 1,000, but underneath every addiction is some type of emotional challenge, emotional dysfunction. And, we just create, as a matter of fact, for everyone who's with us right now, we have 6 books on my website for free. And one of them most of them are almost brand new. One of them is called David Essel's Permanent Alcohol and Life Recovery Program. And in there, we talk about the underlying causes of any and all addictions, not just alcohol. And the mental health world is struggling so terribly since COVID. We look at the athletes. In the last couple of years, the NBA, the NFL has been putting some of their star athletes in mental health commercials for television. We have so much work to do. People don't understand how damaging not taking care of your mental health is. And when we're in the world of addiction, we're not taking care of our mental health at all, whether it's food addiction or whatever it might be. In the last 5 years since COVID, we've seen a massive increase in 3 specific addictions. 1 is alcohol, 2 is porn, and 3 is food. For the first time in American history, 85% of the population is either overweight or obese in America today. For the first time in history. Now, we go back and we can't blame COVID for everything, but COVID had a huge play in the uptick of all of these addictions, and now we're seeing the end result. We are flooded with people with these addictions and more. Interestingly enough, prior in the early teens, we used to have a lot of heroin addicts that I worked with. That has almost completely disappeared, and now it's alcohol, food, and porn. We worked with some kids, I say, because of my age, I call them kids. They're like 28 or 30, in London that were social media addicts 18 hours a day on social media. I mean, you would see them on Zoom or Skype, and, you could tell they hadn't slept in months. And we got – say that?
Because I have a teenager, so I know how much they love watching those, they scroll through the TikTok, I guess Snapchat. Yeah. I don't do the Snapchat, and I rarely go on TikTok, but I graduated from high school in 1986, so I get your generation, I get her generation. I have a broad range of generations. I watched my dad and my mother, which were completely different. She was Christianity, and she did not get involved or really listen about any spiritual things like talking to me after she passed away, because I had a few years warning that this would happen inevitably. So she then said, "Barbara, I just saw an angel right behind you." And that happened 2 nights in a row, right? Like a couple or one day before she passed away. So she opened up and I said, "Okay, will you talk to me then? Will you visit me, please?" And then she said, "Yes." Oh my gosh. I reached to her just in the last minute. And we just happened to be there visiting. We just happened to be there during her downcline, 7-day downcline to death. It was the craziest thing, my daughter and I. And so I see her in a certain corner up in my home where she appears. And this light that beams into my heart, and I'm standing there, I literally have tears that are flowing like a faucet of joy. And I am telling you, I feel like this is heaven. And I'm reaching to try to tell my daughter, "Please look, this is so wonderful, look." And then it goes away, and then I'm back.
Yes.
And wow. And then when I'm watching these shows about people who have been to heaven, but they came back, and none of them even wanted to come back, except for, now I heard a couple of hell stories, but they are I really believe them. I see their face and I see their stories. But what they describe, this light, this is the feeling. Why did I go, but I didn't die or anything? I'm just standing there, talking to my mother. She appeared to me. I wasn't sleeping. I was just, maybe I was. I don't remember, but I think I might have been, in a twilight, almost nap, afternoon sunlight coming in, and then I stood up, and then, boom, I was there. Well, anyway, it happened to me. So I just wanted to know because Johnny and I are really interested in this kind of supernatural phenomenon, these experiences. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you are, I mean, you're going, yeah, like you're interested in this subject.
Oh, my God, Barbara.
What?
This is huge. This
It
is a
is?
huge part of my work.
Oh, I didn't know.
Listen to this. We actually teach people how to create what I have termed gateways to connect with their mom, dad, sister, brother, partner who is passed over. And we have a system that we follow. And I'll tell you, we had a system before, but it changed 4 years ago when my mom died. My mom and I we were not close as I was a kid because I was just a troublemaker. I was a problem. When I got into my 20s, I remember calling my mom and dad on the phone, and I said, this is when we had wall phones with a speaker. And
Yes.
I said, put it on speaker, and I said, hey, I have a huge apology to make. I said, 90% of what you guys tried to teach me as a child, you were correct. And I am so sorry. My personality is very different than my brothers and sisters. I know that you guys didn't know how to handle me. I do not blame you a thing for all the stuff you did to try to get me into alignment. But, it's me to make the apology. Well, from that moment until my mother died, my mother and I were inseparable. It's been 3 or 4 years, and I can still get emotional. She would send me care packages, as a 40, 50, 60-year-old man. Every month I'd get a pound of coffee, a can of tuna. She was freaking adorable.
That's
now,
nice.
She died of dementia, which is one of the worst freaking diseases in the world. She was in hospice with my dad. They died together, almost together for 4 years. But I want to talk about the appearances, because my mom has appeared to me from her death 3 to 4 years ago 5 to 6 times. And I'm going to tell you the most profound one. When she died, I started journaling every night letters to my mother. And my father was alive for 1 more year. So for 10 straight months, every night, I would write her a letter, dear Mom. And most of the time I'm crying, and most of the time I'm missing her. And then I started to realize something, Barbara and Jonathan. The tears of grief are purely tears of love. I'm going to say that again because I want everyone to really hear this. Tears of grief. If you didn't love someone so deeply when they passed on, you could not have tears. Those tears are tears of love. I started to recognize that in myself. At the 10th month mark, I'm up early in the morning in my courtyard journaling, and I got this message. Rip up all the pavers in the courtyard and build the biggest garden that you've ever seen for your mother. Now, I have a new spiritual book that's out that you can also get for free at my website. And we take people through how to create deep spiritual connections with saints, sages, you name it, even those people that have passed on. On that 10th month, when I got that message in the morning from an angel, an entity, I can never tell who gives me my messages, I tore up 200 pavers, huge pavers, dug the garden. The next day, which was Christmas Eve, planted so many flowers, and then it happened. I'm laying in bed, wide awake. Lights are out, but I'm wide awake. I don't sleep really well. My partner's head is on my chest. So her head is going up and down, and I know I'm awake. And all of a sudden in front of me is a screen. And I'm looking at this screen, and it rises up. And it shows a hallway. And all of a sudden, someone is walking down the hallway. And I'm checking my partner's head. It's still going up and down, so I know I'm conscious. I know I'm not dreaming this. And all of a sudden, Jesus Christ walked in from the hallway. And he stared at me with this unbelievable look of compassion. He said nothing. And the next thing, the screen goes down. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the heck is that? 30 seconds later, I'm still checking. I'm still awake. I'm still conscious. Her head is going up and down on my chest. the screen goes up. The hallway comes back. And all of a sudden, there's my mom walking towards me. And she used to say this when I was a child. "Oh, David. Oh, my lovely David. My son, please know that I am doing fantastic and know that your mother is with you every day. Honey, I have to go, but I just wanted you to see that I'm doing great. Your mother loves you so much, and she is never apart from you." The screen goes down, Barbara and Jonathan, and I jumped out of bed screaming. I said, "Oh, my God, did I just astral travel? What the heck was that?" And
wow.
my partner looks at me, and she goes, "I heard the whole thing."
Really?
That was your mother. And that blew my mind so much that I started looking backwards. You know, what have I done to have this incredible visitation? And then I realized this is one of the ways we create gateways. We write to them every day. Do you know how I'm working with, I mentioned, a wife whose husband committed suicide just 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm working with another woman who woke up in bed next to her husband who had passed away during the night. Very, very terrifying things. And they, especially the one who because the one whose husband killed himself, it's only been a couple of weeks of working together. I'm not even talking to her about gateways. But the other one I've worked with a year and a half, and her husband is constantly around. And she can feel him. And one of the ways she knows it's him is she hates coins, nickels, dimes, pennies. Whenever she got them, when they were married 38 or 40 years, whenever she would get them, she would just give them to him and say, "I don't want to carry this in my purse." She lives in her house by herself, and I was asking her to write these letters, and she was phenomenal. She did everything I asked her to do. All of a sudden, one day she calls me for a session, freaking out. She said, "David, there were all these coins on my kitchen counter this morning. I'm the only one that lives here. I went to bed at 11 o'clock at night. There were no coins. I wake up this morning, they're all over the counter." From that day to yesterday, I had a session with her yesterday. Another coin appeared in her house yesterday. From no visitation, no one else there. Now, for the non-believers, that's totally fine. I would never try to convince you of something that you have no interest in or think is nonsense. Good, just stay where you are. That's fine. For people that want to heal, the people that want to heal their grief, the people that want to be filled with more love and love the person who has passed on, think about what I'm saying.
They need
the
signs.
More you... I'm sorry?
They love and need those signs. They feel like those are signs because they must be.
Oh, they are. And Barbara, I'm glad you used that word. I didn't write this book, but on Amazon you can get a book called Signs. And it's exactly what we're talking about.
Oh my gosh, we're getting Johnny, we are getting some great things, some great info from this excellent speaker, David Essel. You are amazing. And no, we really appreciate this. But we can always refer to this show and listen to this again. But I am going to go through and collect all these great links. But where can we find more? Can you tell us the best way? Should we just head to your David Essel website?
Oh, my gosh, yes, Barbara and Jonathan. And there's a really easy name of my website to remember, talkdavid.com. Talkdavid.com. It's all I've done. If my mom was standing here, she would scream into the phone, "Barbara, it's true. He's talked since a little kid. He never shuts up."
Well, I guess you're right for the job that you do, and you've made a great career out of it.
Yes. So if you go to talkdavid.com, you can get 6 books for free. You can get a free 20-minute session with me on the phone. Just sign up for it, and I'll help you as much as I can in 20 minutes. If you sign up to work with me, great. If you don't, great. My whole purpose is to be here on Earth helping as many people as we can. talkdavid.com. There's also a link there to my YouTube channel with 2,500 free videos on personal growth. Everything, Barbara and Jonathan, that we're talking about tonight, plus more. So, really quickly, there's a gentleman in 1990 that had a huge impact on my life, and his name is Dr. Wayne Dyer. The first time... Oh, is it Wayne? I was going to say Wayne was great. He still is. His books are still here. His spirit is still here. But, I interviewed him in 1990, and at the end of the interview, he looked at me and he said, "How long have you been hosting talk radio?" I said, 6 months. And he looked at me and he said, "This was a phenomenal show. I want to come back in 3 months. Can we do that?" I said, "Oh my gosh," in a heartbeat. And then he looked at me, Barbara, and this is the power of leaders in society. And he said, "David, you've been in business for 11 years. You've been on the air for just a few months or whatever. How can I help you the most? What can I do to help your career the most?" And Barbara and Jonathan, I remember sitting there going, I can't even believe this is happening. This guy was huge in 1980. Many people, depending on your age, if you were around in the 80s, your Erroneous Zones and other books he wrote, he was a massive star. In 1990, he was a massive star. And here's this guy saying, "How can I help you?" I said, "Well, Dr. Wayne, if you would give me an endorsement, that would be awesome." He said, "Oh, my God," in a heartbeat. He goes, "How else can I help you?" And he actually gave the endorsement to the producer right there. And I said, "Do you have any words of advice for an entrepreneur?" I said, "I've been an entrepreneur for 11 years, and I always want to grow my business." And he started laughing. He said, "I'm going to tell you something that at first you're going to push back on, and then you're going to do it and see how powerful it is." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Take your best stuff and give it away for free." I said, "But if I give my best stuff away, people won't hire me." He said, "That's where you're wrong." He said, "People will flock to you because you're willing to help without charging a penny." And Barbara and Jonathan, I still follow his advice from 1990, which is why we have 6 books on the website for free and 2,500 videos for free. We believe in giving and serving is the purpose. One of the main purposes of being a human being is to look to help others. And we have a brand new program that's going to be released this week. The webpage should be up by Friday, and it's called Look to Lift Others. And we're giving tons of examples of how you can, in a really short period of time, walking into a grocery store, looking behind you and holding the door open for someone, helping someone that can't reach something on a shelf. I mean, I'm giving you really simple examples, but we believe our new movement, it's a grassroots movement, and I make the analogy to the civil rights movement because I think it's that important. We have become a country of anger. We've become a country of impatience, irritability. And yet, that can all change if when we get out of our car, we stop for a second, hesitate, and say, I need to look to see who I can lift. If a third of Americans would do that, we would change the tempo of this country in a freaking heartbeat.
I agree. And that is something that it comes so easily when you are doing the work and you're enrolled in a class, or maybe you can be your own boss and, do your homework every day, look in the mirror. And I like your affirmations, by the way, because sometimes I just have to make up my own, but having a set affirmation, maybe print it out and then you memorize it and you say it, and it becomes just like habit every morning. Right. Be good. Because right now I'm just like, sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, I can, write to my accountability group, which is 3 other ladies, and say, yes, homework's complete. And then I really was standing in the mirror saying, you're so great. I love you.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And then just kind of like, I did it, and still like not, because you have to go be accountable. And so like, then you start wondering, well, am I really wanting to be accountable? So then the guidance person, the director, they can really tell, and they finish with uplifting things. And then, I don't know, maybe you get some sleep. And things change, but it has been nice to have since January or February, to be every single day. I have to check in and say I've done my homework, and you don't want to be a liar. Who are you then? So it forces you to do something, even though it's pitiful some days, but they don't expect it to be too much. And I said 1 minute they only expect you to meditate, which is sometimes even hard. Even get yourself to sit down and to actually do a minute and breathe. And the breathing thing is what people don't do. And so all day long they're like shallow breaths and anxiety. But isn't it amazing what a few deep breaths sitting, Indian, well, I can't say that now, crisscross and your palms up. It's like 2 or 3 breaths, right? That's for a person. And I mean, how much can a mind take every single second of the day being on? Nothing is like meditation. Can you touch upon what meditation does for the brain a little bit?
I would love to, but first I want to follow up on your comment about the breath, especially with anxiety. So, overthinking, rumination is a part of our society today. There's so many people filled with anxiety, and the breath is life. If we breathe correctly, and you said it, Barbara, it's not shallow breath. We don't breathe from our chest. We do what's called diaphragmatic or belly breathing. You put your hand on your stomach, and when you inhale long enough until you feel your stomach rise. Now, your stomach isn't actually rising. What's happening is the diaphragm, the lower part of it, which most of us don't use, is filling with air. And the diaphragm is right next to the stomach. So it makes it appear like the stomach is rising, and it is being pushed out, but it's because the diaphragm is getting filled with oxygen. Now, listen to this, guys. The coolest thing in the world, the vagus nerve, VAGUS, is the largest nerve in the body, and it goes from the top of your head to your toes. It has everything to do with anxiety. When you activate the vagus nerve through 10 deep belly breaths, your anxiety will drop by 50% in about 2 minutes. Will it eradicate it completely? No. There's probably something you have to do, because anxiety is usually created because we didn't do something we should have done, or whatever it might be, right? We're going into a situation we've never been in before, and we're anxious, we're nervous. If we were to sit and do 10 deep breaths, it is incredible how the mind starts to calm because the body starts to calm. Now, when we go into meditation, and this is a favorite of mine by far, I do both breathing exercises and meditation every day. Meditation, when it's done correctly, and there's 1,000 different forms, but, the easiest form is Zen meditation, and it's not simple, but it's super easy. And what we do when we teach Zen meditation is that we have people either sitting or walking. Walking meditation is incredible. And if anyone's interested, Google, if you can remember this name, Thich Nhat Hanh, ThichNhatHahn. I know I said it really quick, but Thich Nhat Hanh passed away last year, and he is one of the leading Buddhist teachers of Zen Buddhism. And what he has shown with meditation, if you breathe in and say the word one, and breathe out and say the word one, and then breathe in and say the word two, and breathe out and say the word two, and you go to 10, he said by the time you get to 10, your whole demeanor will change. Now, in the beginning, when people try to do this, what will happen is they'll get 1, 2, and then all of a sudden they'll go, oh, shoot, I got to go to the store tonight. That did not destroy your meditation. All we do if you have a thought is we stop for a second and we go, thought. And then we go back to counting and breathing. And if we think about something, I got to pick up my daughter at 6 tonight. Thought. You haven't destroyed your meditation. The mind is meant to think. All it's doing is what it's meant to do. We're trying to slow it down. And as you go through these processes, the mind does start to slow down, and you can start having better reactions to the insanity the world is in around us.
Well, why do you think that I was so able to connect with that portal? Do you think, because Johnny and I have had so many people on talking about this topic of, going to heaven, past lives, psychics, and, people who are mediums many times. So maybe I opened myself. I think I consciously did open myself to it because I did see spirits outside when I moved here 5 years, and it scared the heck out of me. But 7 years before that, in the 90s, I was at a hotel and I was attacked by a spirit, and then years later, like you, I never knew what the heck happened. And even though my boyfriend did believe me because I said, I can't be here another night in this hotel, I had woken up my head on the other side of the wrong side of the bed, kicking, and I was in between, like I wanted to wake up. But I was thrashing this spirit that was trying to suffocate me, and I even kicked over the lamp in this hotel room, and every single side of one of the walls was mirror. The whole thing was mirror.
Wow.
Yes. Ooh, it shouldn't have been, I don't think. And I got out of there. I wouldn't even go back to sleep. I had my boyfriend was probably like 26 years old, or no, like 22. Oh my gosh. Anyway, he really believed me.
Yeah.
But then the people in Chicago said, yes, there was an insane asylum underneath that hotel.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Ooh. But they got
That's
me. And then
crazy.
later, I was watching a documentary, and there is a thing called the Old Hag spirit, Old Hag syndrome, or Old Hag, and it tries to suffocate you. And you can kind of see it. It's just this shadow thing. It's suffocating you, and you're struggling and kicking it off. And you finally do, if you're strong enough, I guess. Which I was. But what if you were on a sedative or something? Maybe you can't. Maybe then the evil spirits can get you. I find all of that very interesting, but I'm glad that you came to the place and are able to help so many people. Even though you struggled, but don't you feel that your struggles, then maybe you didn't know why it was happening to you, but now, of course, and maybe hopefully for many years, you realize that this is your kind of like your purpose.
Well, Barbara, it is my purpose. It's my legacy. It's the whole reason that I was put on earth is to do this work. And I will tell you something to mirror what you just said. And this is going to sound strange to people outside of the world of psychotherapy, but if you understand psychotherapy, the addictions that I carried for so many years were absolute blessings. I mean, pure blessings, because I'm able to help so many people understand the world of addiction that could never understand it without someone who's gone through the depths of it. The suicide failure, an absolute blessing, awakening me to the fact that I had to make major lifestyle changes, and I had to accept the fact that I had mental health challenges that I had denied for my whole life. So these things that have occurred to me, I say jokingly to some people when they come in, they go, well, you probably never had anyone who had this issue, and they'll tell me the issue, and I'll go, well, yeah, I had it. So they'll go, oh, my God, are you crazy? I'll go, no, I've been there too. And, I used to look at some of this stuff in a different way. I used to look at it as negative. Oh, my God, I was an alcoholic and cocaine addict. Oh, my. Now I look at it and say, thank you. You have been, God, the greatest teacher by pushing me to do things I would never do without the pain I had to experience. And we call it hitting a bottom.
I was going to say
right?
something. Yeah, I was going to say
Go right
something
ahead,
about
Jonathan.
that. I was going to say something about that, because when, it's like, it's really weird. It's sort of like I am like I mean, pen pals with George Foreman, and he sort of, what I was going to say is that there's a lot of paranormal stuff that's connected to that, because he had dreams, before he made his comeback. that he was going to win every fight in the world. So it's sort of like premonitions. And I think that it's funny because dreams aren't anything that anybody can else explain except for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. The dream world is fascinating, and I'm not an expert in, explaining what a dream might be. I can make logical guesses, but I'm not an expert in the dream world. What's interesting, Jonathan, about what you said? I wrote a book a year ago for professional athletes, and we got a quote from Deontay Wilder, who's one of the top heavyweight boxers in the world. If you want to see how life has changed, Deontay Wilder does meditation 4 to 6 hours a day, along with his physical training and along with, his boxing workouts and all that kind of stuff. And he believes that his time in meditation is what has prolonged his career, what he believes has protected him. He said he goes into the ring. He is so laser focused because of meditation. He said, I don't hear the crowd at all for the whole fight. He said, meditation has completely changed my life. And, a really beautiful feel-good story. He was a truck driver making minimal wage. And when he had a baby, she had spina bifida. And he knew that she would never live outside the home. And he knew the medical expenses would be through the roof. So he quit driving a truck and became a professional boxer in order to support his daughter. This man is so amazing. And the fact that he puts in so much time to his spiritual work doesn't surprise me. It's like so many of the professional athletes that I have worked with, they all do the same thing. They have meditation. They have Djokovic, one of the possibly the greatest tennis player of all time, has this massive workout with his wife and kids that's all spiritual. They do yoga every morning. They actually hug trees. They actually do put their arms around nature and trees.
So I wanted to ask you, is this the sort of thing that's mentioned on your website, or?
Yeah, like the book I'm talking about, with the boxer and all that. That book is an Audible for free on my website, talkdavid.com. And for anyone interested in sports or athletics, and Barbara, you said that you were involved with athletics. I mean, there's so many cool stories that I have from athletes I've worked with and interviewed. From Greg Louganis, if you guys remember, the great gold medalist diver.
Yes, I from all of these athletes you've been mentioning.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, these people are just amazing. And when I interviewed Greg Louganis, it was after an Olympics when, for the first time that he could ever remember, during a trial run, he hit his head on the diving board, and blood was all over the place. And his coach came over, and they were talking about, not competing, going back to the room, getting the stitches, and just giving up, and just saying, hey, this isn't going to be our year. And he went back to the room, and he got super quiet, and he went inside, and the answer he got was, go dive. And he did, and got another gold medal. And, I love these stories because it gives, I don't care if they're athletes or not, it can happen to anyone. These people are so trained and mentally tough. And that's one of the things I love my clients to become more of, and I want our country to become more mentally tough, more in control of our emotions, less irritability, less anger, less rage. The racial insanity in our country just has to end. I can't believe in 2024 that we're going through what we've been going through. But, these are all choices. And people have to start to make better choices. And Barbara and Jonathan, I've said this a couple times, it's the only reason I'm here. It's the only reason I'm still here, is to do the work that the three of us have been talking about tonight. I'm never retiring. I'm never stopping. This is the love of my life, and it's the reason that I get up in the morning, and I can't wait to do it again. When I see suffering, another story that goes hand in hand with look to lift others. I have to do what I teach others. If I'm not a leader, or if I am a leader, I'm doing what I tell everyone else to do, and I do. A couple of weeks ago, I was going to. I'm sorry.
Go on with your story. I was just going to say, I love what you're doing with the kids and starting. And I mean, I have a special coach that did something when I was young, all the time, which changed my life. But please, we love hearing the stories. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So, I get out of the car and I say to myself, look to lift others. That's the name of the program, David. Get into the habit of it. And I've always looked to lift others, but now I'm doing it even more consciously. As I'm walking towards this grocery store, I see this very short man sitting next to a skateboard, it looked like. And so I get closer and I see people are walking by and no one's looking at him. And I said, okay, that's weird. What's going on? As I get closer, I see that it's a grown man without any legs and with tiny pieces of arms with clubs as hands. I mean, the fingers don't open. And the arms are, I don't know, maybe a foot long, no legs. He has one flap that he pushes his skateboard on. And as I got closer, I'm looking at all these people, walking by, giving him stares and all this kind of crap. And I said to him, sir, are you going to be here for a minute? And he looks up at me and he said, yeah. I said, okay, please stay here. I want to come out and say hi to you. So I just had to pick up two quick things. I raced into the store. I raced out, and he was still there, thank God. I got down on my knees, so I'm at eye level. And I said, I am so glad you're here. What's your first name? And he said, James. I said, James, I'm David. And I stared into his eyes. And I said, James, I want you to take this the perfectly right way. I have a great connection with you, my brother. I saw you walking into the store. I could not wait to come out and talk to you. Do you know what I'm saying? And he looks at me, Barbara and Jonathan, and he said, sir, I sure do. And he gave me this huge smile. And I said, can I hug you? He goes, oh, my God, yes. I gave him this huge hug. We talked for a few minutes. I said, can I get you something from inside? I got him something from inside. Came back out. We talked for a couple minutes more. And I said, James, how often do you come here? He said 3 times a week. I skate my board, and then I charge my wheelchair and charge my phone and all these other kind of things I have to do. And I said, I really hope to see you regularly. He said, wow, that would be beautiful. I walked away with a heart full of love. Last weekend, I hadn't seen him in 3 weeks. Last weekend, driving up to the store, I see him in his wheelchair scooting down an aisle. I jumped out of the car. I wasn't even thinking, left the door wide open, started screaming, James, and he looks, he turns around, and he comes speeding back to me. And we gave each this incredible hug. Now, I am no different than anyone else who's with us right now, Jonathan and Barbara. I don't have any special powers other than a desire to look to lift others. I want everyone with us to do the same thing. It can be so easy. One of my clients, and we have stories on this, when our website is going to be up, the page is up. We have stories of one of my clients that I've been encouraging all my clients to do this, and they come in and they tell me what's happened in the last 7 days. There was a 90-year-old woman in a grocery store in one of those little wheelchairs, and she was stuck between 2 counters, and everyone's walking by. No one's doing anything to help her. And one of my clients is standing there watching this, and his mouth is open. He's going, what the heck is happening here? This woman's, so he just observed. And he observed all these people walking by. And finally he came up and he said, excuse me, ma'am. And she said, yes. He goes, are you stuck there? And she started laughing, and she said, I sure am. And he goes, do you have a license? Have you passed a license to bring your wheelchair into the store? And they both started cracking up. Well, he helped her get out. And then as he's doing his shopping, he runs into her several more times. Finally says, I've seen you so many times, I feel like I know you. Can I hug you? This is so simple, guys. This is not rocket science, but it's being conscious. It's raising your level of consciousness where your desire is to lift others. But if you don't look, you'll never find someone to lift.
Well, they haven't been taught, some people, and it's just a matter of doing so. And then they don't know that you look back and hold the door for whoever's behind you. Their parents never did. Maybe they didn't have parents. Maybe.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about. So they are receiving this well, and you're getting thousands, I know. You're changing people's lives. And this new, wonderful, this isn't just an event. This is a way of life. This is it's changing. It's being aware. It's teaching the young, the youth. This is about kids. Is it around tween age or grade school? Where do you start with kids?
Well, grade school. Great question. And on that page, Barbara, will be my children's book for free. Of course, here we go, giving away our stuff again. On that page, when it's released, maybe this Thursday, there will be, this is what kids can do, and then there will be the book. And in the book, I tell a story, and it's called The Real Life Adventures of Catherine Cat Calloway I. And Cat Calloway was the most popular girl in her school, her elementary school. And every day when she came into the lunchroom, all these kids would be screaming, "Come over here and sit with me. No, come over and sit." Everyone loved Cat. This day she walks in and she sees this little girl who doesn't look like anyone else sitting by herself in the cafeteria. She had never seen her before. And so she stood there and wondered, what should I do? I have all my friends calling my names that I've known forever, but can I just let this little girl sit by herself? So she makes that decision. She walks by all of her friends and she sits down and she says to the little girl, "Hey, do you mind if I sit next to you?" And the little girl didn't say anything. And she said, "That's okay. Don't worry. I'll talk for both of us." And she sits down and she takes out her lunch and she goes, "Hey, let me explain what my mom made for lunch." And she goes through this whole thing. And then at the end, she said, "You don't have to talk, but I really hope to see you tomorrow." Well, the next day she comes in and the little girl still isn't speaking. The next day she comes in. At the end of the book, we find out that this little girl has this most amazing talent. And she doesn't look like anyone else in the school. Her father was a traveler, so they moved from city to city constantly, and she was always having a hard time making friends. But because Cat Calloway kept coming back day after day, even though the little girl didn't talk to her for multiple days, when she finally did talk, this is how she spoke. Cat asked her, "Every day you're scribbling on paper. Can I see what you're drawing?" And the little girl shook her head no. And then one day when Cat sat down, the little girl said, "This is what I was drawing." And she held up a perfect image of Cat Calloway. This little girl was an exceptional artist. Cat Calloway stood up in the lunchroom, and before you knew it, every kid was in line wanting Ling Ling Lu, which is the little girl's name, to draw their portrait as well. And at the end, Cat says a little rhyme about when you see someone sitting alone, it's our responsibility to make them feel a part of our community. And she says it in this very cute little rhymey way. But, for kids, Barbara and Jonathan, we give examples for kids. We'll have examples for executives. We're going to have examples for everyone. If you are...
Hold on. That exact story happened to me. I moved.
Did it really?
Yes. I had to move. And my very first day of 5th grade, I was standing there in the vestibule, and this girl came up. I wasn't going in the classrooms, and this girl came up to me and asked, "Are you lost, little girl?" Because I was so much smaller than all in my grade for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so shy to go in. Didn't want to. I was standing there, and I said, "No, I'm supposed to be in there." And she goes, "Do you want to come in and sit by me?" And I said, "Yes." And we glued our lips together that day with like Elmer's glue and laughed our heads off. And we've literally been best friends, nitro and glycerin, still to this day, my friend.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. Still.
Barbara, I have a request. And you can say no. But you know what I would love? I would love if you wouldn't mind sending your story to my publicist, TJ. He'll send it to me, and when the page is up, with your permission, I would love to put your story. That is a beautiful story. And the fact that you're still best friends today, oh, my God. Yes. If it feels good in your heart, and you might be too busy, and so there's no pressure on my part, no. I'm throwing it out there.
I would love to. My heart is already beaming that you would ask. And thank you so much. Yes, I would love to let you guys share that story.
Oh, fantastic. It's going to make a big difference.
Really? Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, it is exactly what you described, really.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
So, of course, her doing that for me made me really learn the lesson. And then me talking about it all the time trickles down. And then her talking about it trickles down. So it's like, it's little things are so very important. I love it.
And you know, look at what happened. This one act of kindness has lasted for decades, Barbara. That's how powerful this is. And that's why I am so committed to this program, Look to Lift Others, because it lasted you a lifetime. It's still present. What happened in 5th grade is still in your life.
Yes. Oh, and then one other little tiny story about a coach in softball. It started when I was in high school, freshman. I'm a 4-year letter woman, second base, softball starter. And he would have us lay in the grass, our whole entire team, all dressed in our uniform before the game, and talk us through and have us deep breathe, meditate, and go through, for me, my double plays and hitting, watch yourself doing each play, watch yourself, yes. And so I, at a very young age, that's, 14 years old, did that with my athletics because of that man, Coach Reginald Head. Coach Head, thanks. Shout out to him. He was amazing, and just things like that just stuck with me. He didn't have to do that. That wasn't part of the curriculum. He added that himself. So thank you. And, also my dad saying, hey, I don't just go for the first parking spot I find, children. I have the power of positive parking, and I expect that the best spot up in front during Christmas time is going to be available for me. And sure enough, it always was. So I've had these little things, and they may be little, but that's how I've lived. I've lived by that. But other people, they've never had that twinkle. They've never had that experience by anybody. Maybe they've never felt even loved.
And Barbara, that's why I want your story on the site. And that's why I'm going to put the little cat book on the site. When people hear of stories like this, it's going to make them more inclined to want to do the same. But if all we do is watch the freaking news, which I tell everyone, do not ever watch the news. I don't care if I'm on media all the time, which I am. And at some point, the news stations will probably stop having me on because I say this all the time. There is nothing in the news that you will not find out in another way if it's that important. However, news is based on sensationalism. News is based on dopamine addiction. And what I mean by that is that the news people have done studies with MRIs to see what type of pictures, what tone of voice by a reporter will make someone want to come back and watch more. These are not stupid people. They're using scientific methods to find out, how do we put this picture? Oh, is this a picture that we replay all week long? Is this not a snapshot of a 4-second video? Will that really light up their brains and get them addicted to come back and find out more negative BS that's going on in this world? I swear, if everyone would shut the news off and do what we're talking about, we would have a completely different country in a couple months. Now, is that being realistic? Of course it is. because I believe in the power of what we're discussing. And I believe with this grassroots movement that we're creating that we're going to be blowing people's minds, and we're going to have more stories than we know what to do with. Because
what do you know what I think? Grassroots. That sounds old-fashioned. Grassroots. What?
Yeah, it's this, Barbara. Like you and I working together is grassroots. Me and TJ, my publicist, he has stories, grassroots. My clients are sharing their stories. So grassroots means I don't have any benefactor with $2 billion behind me to go and buy ads to promote Look to Lift Others. So we have to do it a person at a time and gain momentum. And your podcast and you and Jonathan tonight, what a great, I'm going to use my own word, gateway. What a gateway to open people's mind to start treating people differently. And that's what grassroots is. We do podcasts, we do television interviews, we do articles, we do everything we can. And we just started.
Like you're a minister.
Yes.
So you would do it on the corner if you could, if people are there to tell.
Everywhere. You know, there isn't a place that this is not appropriate with the way the world is right now. I mean, it's appropriate to talk to everyone about looking to lift others. It's just a simple, appropriate thing for us to do as human beings, you know, to love each other more deeply, to accept those who don't look or act like we do. This is a major movement. We're starting at the base level, but we believe it's going to be huge.
Oh, well, I do not doubt that for a second. And I'm excited hearing that people are just like you taking it and rolling with it and doing it. You have a huge following. You are on TalkDavid.com, is it? On
TalkDavid.com.
Radio every Saturday or Sunday. So
we are all over the place, you know, and it's a blast, Barbara.
Live every Saturday or Sunday, is it?
Well, actually, right now, the radio, we've switched to podcast, and we're doing 6-minute podcasts. What we have found, here we go back to research, we've found that the average person with podcasts with limited time will listen to 6 minutes. And
really?
Then those people, yeah.
That's
and
their
then those
attention
people,
span?
it's attention span, 100% attention span. And that's, again, that's another issue with our country, right? We've gotten down to instant gratification is what everyone wants.
Yeah.
Instead of going to the gym, let me take a bunch of green tea pills to burn fat, which never works, of course. But, you know, we've got this instant gratification. So we just made a decision about a year ago to switch to these really short podcasts. And then we put them all on my YouTube channel. So it's a way to, like, take a topic. We were talking earlier about breathing. I think it was a week ago. If you go to my YouTube channel, I did a really simple exercise for someone who has never done any breathing exercises. And so we try to introduce people to new concepts and ways that they can bite in small chunks. And then, of course, if someone has been meditating for a long time, we have a 44-minute meditation on YouTube. So we try to touch every base, Barbara and Jonathan, so no one feels left out, everyone feels cared for.
And there's a lot free. Okay. I want to ask, are we able to get, is it a 40-minute session or no, that's not fair. We already know we like you because we just spent an hour and a half with you. So, no, I guess Johnny and I.
Barbara, if you and Jonathan wanted a free 20-minute session with me on the phone, the answer is heck yes. If you want 30 minutes, yes.
Okay, great. Johnny, how about that?
That sounds good. Well, thank you for coming on.
Johnny and I are together, though. Can we have it separately?
Yes, we have it separately, yes.
Otherwise, we only get 10 minutes each, but, you know, I guess
that's right. No, we always do it separately, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing, and you're doing such a great thing out there in the world, and using the entire universe, which I find amazing and exciting, and my mind and heart and soul is open to all of that so much.
Love it.
So I can't wait to find out more, and I'm going to continue and listen to that story that you were touching on talkdavid.com, and everybody get behind, look to lift others. This is a grassroots thing happening right now, and you can change in a split second. It takes a split second to change, and that is all that needs to happen, and find out how, and it's going to be fun and exciting, and my heart is beaming. We're so grateful to have you on, and Johnny, how did you like it? Did you learn?
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Good. I appreciate, Jonathan and Barbara, I appreciate the amount of time you shared with me tonight. I appreciate you allowing me to share stories to lift your listeners as well. And yes, all you have to do is, Barbara and Jonathan, if you just reach out to my publicist, TJ, and say, hey, David offered, each of us a free 30-minute session, he will get in touch with me and we'll get it all set up. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds so great. In the meantime, I will write my story, and then I will send it to your publicist. And thank you so much. I can't wait to see it on your website or wherever you want to put my story.
Oh, yeah. We'll promote the heck out of it, Barbara. I loved your story, and the fact that it's still going on is mind-blowing to me. I love that.
Yes. Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks, everybody, for listening. Go check out David Essel.
Yes. Okay. Bye, Jonathan. Bye, Barbara.
Have a good night.
Yes. Good night.
Thank you, Johnny.